Okay, for about the, let's say, 15th time, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be my second of 4 previews for Louisiana colleges in recapping 2024 and previewing 2025 before the training camps really get started. This one's going to be on Louisiana Lafayette. Last season was supposed to be hopefully a rebound from the last 2 seasons of the first 2 rounds of Michael DeSormo. First 2 seasons of replacing Billy Napier hadn't gone so well, as Napier had brought this team into Sunbelt dominance. In 2022 and 2023, neither season went that well. Both seasons going 6-7 on it, and you didn't know if it was going to work out under DeSormo. And just like in Billy Napier's struggles at Florida, you may have to wonder if DeSormo was the answer to afloat in the Sunbelt and towards the top of this conference. Fortunately, a lot of their core, including their top 2 quarterbacks in Ben Wooldridge and backup Chandler Fields, both of them in their last year at a quarterback for Lafayette. And it started out really well against substandard competition, but blowout wins against Grambling, blowout wins against Kennesaw State. They had a close loss against Tulane, who Tulane was one of the favorites to actually make the playoff as a Group of 5 team. Picked to win the American, and they got damn close. And just for the probably biggest highlight for Lafayette on this season, after losing to Tulane, they got a Power 4 conference win in Wake Forest, 41-38. So they had a strong win against the big boys and kind of started to build off of what this team could become later on in the season. They had built up with 2 star running backs that are both returning for this upcoming season in Bill Davis and Zylan Perry. Against Wake Forest himself, Davis had 97 yards and a touchdown. Perry had 78 yards on 11 carries. So carrying this offense, even with Wooldridge being solid in the front, 20 for 29, 257, and 3 touchdowns. And they kept up with that momentum for the next couple weeks with a win against Southern Miss, who was one of the worst teams in the conference, and a win against App State and Coastal Carolina, both the latter 2 34-24. And even in another against Kansas State and Arkansas State. So you're going through a good portion of their schedule, like 2/3 of the way done. This team is 8-1. And then the wheels kind of start to fall off against South Alabama. So in this game, Wooldridge gets hurt in the late first half. He wasn't that effective to begin with. He had decent numbers, 8 for 13, 91 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. They were already trailing at that point, 24-3 going into the half, so they had to rely on their backup Chandler Fields, getting his first relief performance of significance time, going 14 for 17, 185 yards and a touchdown. He brought in a strong comeback for the team as they kept South Alabama scoreless for the entire second half. Their rushing being mixed at best. Perry not really much of a factor in the game, but Davis 57 yards on 16 carries. But they still fell 24-22, and at that point, they're at 8-2 on the season. At this point, you're kind of expecting Wooldridge is going to be out for maybe the rest of the season. You got 2 regular season games left and a potential for a conference championship at this point. And to Fields' credit, he kind of dominated his last 2 games. Once against Troy, 51-30. Fields throwing for over 320 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then to end the regular season, they had a win 37-23 against the home state rival Louisiana Monroe Warhawks, where Fields not as impressive. 188 yards on 17 of 26 passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, but they got a very strong performance from the run game. 19 carries, 150 yards for Zylan Perry, with 2 touchdowns, and 17 carries for 82 yards for Bill Davis. And to their credit, both of these guys are coming back for 2025. So at this point, you're going into the conference championship game with a 10-2 record. Very respectable, already 4 games better than they were the last 2 seasons, going up against the University of Marshall. It's a home game for the conference championship game. From there, the rest of the season, the Marshall game, Fields gets hurt in the second quarter, so they have to replace him with freshman quarterback Daniel Beal at a University of Catholic. Beal was 9 for 24 for the game, less than 40%, 95 yards. And for the entire game, they had 255 yards, but for a team that was reliant on their top 2 runners, only had 56 yards on 28 carries, no touch, just very ineffective. So even with that 10-3 regular season and it's going to get them a solid bowl against another Power 4 team. Their bowl game, they get a game all the way in New Mexico against a Power 4 opponent of TCU. So hopefully they're thinking Wooldridge might be able to come back even though Chandler Fields is out for the year. And I can't even say they really showed up. Lost 34-3. Wooldridge ineffective, 7 for 20 for 61 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Then you had Perry and Davis combining for 70 yards rushing on 20 carries. Not terrible, but so going into this year, they have as much of the staying power that is returning for the fact they're losing 8 starters on offense, 7 starters on defense. As I said earlier, they're bringing back Bill Davis, Zylan Perry as the top 2 running backs. Both of them combined to have about 1,500 yards rushing and 13 touchdowns. So running the ball should be their strength for this season. Passing with Wooldridge and Fields being out of the picture, it's probably going to be more of a struggle, you would think. Especially for the fact that they lose their top 4 receivers with graduate Lance Legendre, Jacob Bernard. They lose a couple transfers, Terrence Carter going to Texas Tech, and Harvey Broussard going to the University of Houston. So offensively, that's a lot of the strength of the team that's getting removed. You don't have that much proven talent coming back in the receiving game. But what you do bring with this transfer portal that comes in, you do get wide receiver Sheldon Sampson, 5-star out of Catholic, and St. Thomas More quarterback Walker Howard. Now, Howard is likely going to be that starter to replace both Wooldridge and Fields, but it's supposedly a 3-man competition between him, between Daniel Beal, and Lunch Winfield, who did get a few attempts on the field last year as well, mostly in blowouts or in the bowl game. But presumably Walker Howard, who's going to be a redshirt junior, is likely going to be the starter for this team. Hopefully the hype for him coming into college with LSU and at Ole Miss, hopefully that translates and makes it to where he is actually an effective player and can help build for a very unproven passing. Now, outside of Sampson coming in, they did bring a couple tight ends in. Trey Miller out of Wayne State, 102 yards and a touchdown. Yes, Wayne State, you don't know what to expect from, I don't even know what Wayne State is, maybe like Division III. But then also tight end Brock Chappell, 22 receptions, 214 yards, 2 touchdowns. I at least know where Furman is. And they bring back one of their backup tight ends in Caden Jensen, who had 19 receptions, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, the rest of the receiving core coming back is going to be their 3rd-string receiver in Robert Williams, who's going to be a senior, 26 receptions, 290 yards, 1 touchdown. Also, we have Charles Robertson, who was academically ineligible last year, but in 2023, 17 receptions, 189 yards, hopefully able to build off of that. Jaden Johnson, only 5 receptions last year, and Dale Martin, going to be a redshirt senior, 4 receptions, 33 yards. So, between that and between their class of 27, including 20 high schoolers, 7 transfers, hopefully they're able to build off of last year's success and get some of the recruits to come in, like freshman tight end Christian McIntosh and Quandre Coates, 2 tight ends that are top 13 tight ends. Now, as I said, defensively, they're losing 7 starters, including their top 5 tacklers. Casey Osai to the Houston Texans, a transfer Carmicah Glass going to the University of Houston, including, and then also 3 of their top defensive backs, Amir McDaniel, Keon Martin, and Justin Nagu, who transferred to the Louisville. To replace some of that back-end support, they get cornerback Curly Reed III, who is from Lake Charles, transferring from the University of Washington, and Trey Tomlinson from Division II Richmond, also from Manitoba, Canada. Likely going to be starters at corner and nickel. So the rest of the secondary is very experienced on who's expected to be the starters. Cody Jackson and Tyree Skipper are the 2 starting safeties. They're coming back. They had 7 interceptions last season. They have a couple of returning edge rushers between linebacker Cameron Whitfield, who had 6 sacks and 8 TFLs, and edge rusher Jordan Lawson, 5.5 sacks, 11 TFLs, and 1 interception. So there is talent and some experience on this team. So taking a look at a few other players from their recruiting class, that Jaden Gloston, the highest rated safety and the highest rated player on this roster from Baton Rouge, likely going to fight for safety reps. Said Russell Babineau, wide receiver, Christian McIntosh. Taking a look at the 2025 schedule, most of these games seem very reasonable for a team of Lafayette's quality. Starting off early against Rice and McNeese before they have to go at Missouri. And while that's going to be the toughest game on the schedule, it's the only game that you don't think that they have a realistic chance of winning the game. They're going to be a heavy underdog, so they're likely to end up starting 2-0 with Rice and McNeese. They'll be competitive with Missouri at least for a time, but likely going to end up falling. It's going to be the first real test for Howard and Sampson and for this defense to see if they can actually stop the running game. Louisiana Monroe running back Ahmad Hardy, who transferred to Missouri and ran for over 170 yards in last year's matchup. If they're not able to do any better against Hardy, this game's going to get out of hand really quick. But going on to the rest of their schedule, at Eastern Michigan, home against Marshall, hopefully to be able to get a bit of a bounce back from last year's conference championship game. But Marshall is one of the biggest teams on transfers leaving out from them. Their coach left the team. They're under first-year coach Tony Gibson. The fact that they're bringing in so much, at this point, some of the pieces are going to start putting together, but Marshall is expected to take a step back from last season. You're going to have a game against James Madison. That game is going to be very, very consequential on who's going to be the favorite to win this conference. That is going to be the toughest matchup, and one where Lafayette probably will not be favored in this game. Then going to the back half of the schedule, the rest of the way, home against Southern Miss, at Troy. Both of them they won against last year, very winnable games. They're hoping for a revenge against South Alabama. Hopefully, fingers crossed, no quarterback injuries in that game. Then you'll get one last matchup against Texas State before they move to the Pac-8. Then once you're going towards Thanksgiving, you'll have one last road matchup that will be on ESPN against Arkansas State on the road. And then the home rivalry game against Monroe at the end of the season. So if you're trying to look at the team as a whole, there is proven talent at the running back position. We'll have to see how their offense can function in the running game, for the fact that they only have 3 of their returning offensive linemen that played more than 50% of their snaps last season, in tackle George Jackson, tackle Bryant Williams, who only played 54%, and then their right guard Jax Harrington. So amongst their 7 new faces on the line between transfer portal and recruitment, they're going to have to show that they are able to build a hole for the run game and be able to protect likely Walker Howard for him to have any set of production. But yeah, this is a team that should be able to get close to that same record from last season, 9-10 wins. Very reasonable for it. And anything below it, in that case, you'll have to wonder, are the 5-star recruits that they're bringing in, were they truly worth the value that they were getting in high school? But what they've been able to show is that Lafayette is a big enough brand at this point that there is strong talent that is going to come here, hopefully to be able to rebuild their stock or to build their stock higher in the next level. So there is a lot of potential for this team to repeat their success from last year. But that all being said, thank y'all for watching. This has been a test on trying things out, and we'll see how it goes there. Next video will be on Tulane. Hopefully next video is on Tulane after a few other reattempts on this as well. But yeah, like or subscribe if you do enjoy this content. If you want more Louisiana college or pro content, I will be putting more information on it in the near future. As I said, Tulane, LSU next, and more content with Louisiana for the New Orleans Saints. While they might not be very good, it is a very interesting concept to go back into what to look forward to, how a team can build off of lower expectations. But yeah, thank y'all for watching. Next video will come up very soon. Leave a comment if there's anything else I need to add, anything else you want to hear about. Alright, now being said, I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.